Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And again, I say to you, good morning. It's your friendly neighborhood Tony right here on this Saturday, August 13th, 2022. We're here in Riverside. The temperature is expected to be 104 degrees. I'm going to say it again. The temperature is expected to be 104 degrees. So whoever did whatever to whomever, I'm gonna need y'all to get that together. Y'all need to repent because we are suffering for your sins. It's hot. It is hot. If I walked outside and I stood out there for about 5 minutes, I'd come back in here looking like Wesley Snipes. That's how dark I would be. So I'm gonna need y'all to get it together. We need rain and we need fall to hurry up and come on back to Riverside. Can y'all do that for me? Because you love me. Can you do it? Okay. Well, anyway, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me. And I know this is an hour earlier than we anticipated, but there's a lot going on in my life that I need to get done. But I did not want to miss the opportunity for our guest today, which I know you are going to love. Okay. And but before we begin, of course, we have to do a couple of quick things here. This day in history, back in 1956. I'm sorry, I'm multitasking. People sending me messages. Um, y'all remember the song Hound Dog, Elvis Presley, right? Now, he recorded it in 1956. However, he wasn't the first to record it, even though his version is the most popular. And that song has been covered, I think, like 2,000 times, or not 2,000, 200 times from what I remember. But the first person who recorded it 4 years prior. And her name was Big Mama Thornton. And she recorded Hound Dog, and it's a bluesy version. Whereas Elvis is a rock and roll version. Big Mama's is complete blues. You can still find it, and it is fantastic. But on this day, back in 1952, the first version of Hound Dog was recorded. Big Mama Thornton. Props to Big Mama Thornton. No disrespect to Elvis, but she did do it first. There we go. And moving right along. Okay, so today we have a very, very special guest with us who I am excited to talk to. I have gotten through a lot of her book, and we're going to talk about this book a lot. She is the author of The Rebellious Widow. Okay. And if you can see right there, it says a practical guide to life, love, practical guide to love and life after loss. Okay. Now I've gotten through 75% of it. All meat, all meat. It's so good. Okay. And it's completely appropriate for what we're going to today. But before we bring Jill on, I would like to say if today is your birthday, happy birthday. Okay. If you're celebrating an anniversary, happy anniversary to you. If you're just celebrating life or anything that has happened in your life, new job, new career, getting out of a bad relationship, whatever it is that you want to celebrate, I hope it's a great day for you today. Okay. But I want to take a quick minute. And I think Jill's timing on this particular show couldn't have been better because she is a licensed clinical social worker. Okay. And she is an expert in grief and grief counseling. She has a Facebook group. We'll talk about that a little bit more. And in the past month, I've lost 3 people. And I would like to take a moment to acknowledge them and give them a brief moment of silence, if you will indulge me. On July 1st, Aaron Norris passed away from cancer. As a matter of fact, the reason we're doing this early today is because his funeral is at 11 today, which I'm going to. On July 18th, I lost another good friend, Don Schmidt. And just yesterday, Susan Braid. She lost her battle to cancer. And I would just like to take a moment, a very brief one, to just acknowledge the fact that their lives had purpose, and I'm going to miss them terribly. And let's just take a moment and just remember them real quickly. All right. There we go. There was about 10 seconds. It may have been like 12 or 13, but I'm a little older, so my seconds don't match up all the way. But anyway, so okay, we will be nice about it today. All right. So on that note, because I want to get as much time with this young lady as I can possibly get, let's go ahead and bring in Miss Jill Johnson.
And here she is.
There you are.
Just like magic.
Just like magic. How are you, lady?
I am good. And I'm so glad you took that time out and you named your friends. That is so important.
It's been weird. I mean, 3 people in a month is a lot. It's a lot. So I was very excited that you were going to be here today. And that you are here, and that it just kind of worked out, and fresh off of a trip from Hawaii.
Work trip, not vacation, but yes.
Oh, it was a work trip.
It was a conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Absolutely.
It's not terrible going to a conference in Hawaii, but it was
I've
work.
I've never been to Hawaii. I know.
Flights are $128 in January.
Sister, I'm scared to go anywhere nowadays because I just you fool around and get stuck somewhere.
That's true.
And I ain't ready just yet to travel all. I ain't seen my mother yet. And if she's watching, she will call me and remind me.
She's first.
By the way, yeah, she's first. That's the first trip I got to make before I go anywhere. Okay. But anyway, I am looking forward to all the wisdom that you have to impart today. And just again, as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen who may be watching, if you have questions while we're talking, please put them in the chat. Producer Mike, shout out to Producer Mike, never seen but always present. He is here keeping me on track. He has a cattle prod now, and so he'll shock me if I go over time, so he keeps me on track. But if you have questions, please put them in the chat and he'll forward them to me. If you have questions for Jill, and I'll forward them to her. Okay. All right. So let's just go ahead and jump in, because I got to be honest with you. I was reading your book and I started highlighting things that kind of stuck out. And then I realized I was going to run out of ink in my highlighter.
That's good to know.
I'm just letting you know. When you say it's a practical guide, it really is. It
was really intended to be. It really was.
There is so much meat in 186 pages, not including the dedication and introduction and anything after. But the meat of the book, there is a lot of meat there. Okay, so let's get started by people who may not know who you are. Let you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Sure. I am the CEO and co-owner of Central Counseling Services here in Riverside and Murrieta and Corona, because you can't ever have enough places to do therapy anymore. And I have been widowed twice, married 3 times. My first wife, Linda, and I had 23 years together. And she died of pulmonary fibrosis secondary to breast cancer. She beat breast cancer. She was so proud of that. She died cancer-free, but the chemo that gave us 10 extra years and time to adopt and raise our kids took her life ultimately. And while she was dying, she became very close to one of her nurses, her hospice nurses, named Casper, because everyone should have a friendly ghost for their hospice nurse.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
And they were like 2 peas in a pod. They had the same background. They had essentially the same parents in terms of history and that sort of thing. And before Linda died, she started telling everybody who would listen to her, including our minister at the time, Jill has to marry Casper after I'm dead. And we'd been very open about her death because it was coming for a very long time. Mm-hmm. She fought breast cancer for 2 years, and then pulmonary fibrosis was 4 years. We got married in 2008, right after the California Supreme Court allowed it for that short little window. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the week that we got married at that window, we were told by her pulmonologist that she would be pushing up daisies soon. And she became oxygen dependent at that point. So we've been preparing for her death and talking about it for forever. And she said, I can't leave you with 3 teenage girls. who were they're about a year apart.
Mhm.
People will tell me, how could you have them so close? I'm like, yeah, I was in Florida at the time. They were born in Barstow. I had nothing to do with the planning. And so ultimately it turned out she was right. And after her death, we had coffee, and then we had more coffee, and then we got married. And the whole time that we were married, we were friends with Stacy, the funeral director, who I'd met with Linda to plan her funeral, and who ultimately did all the final arrangements for Casper. And yeah, now Stacy and I are married. So I'm married to the funeral director who took both of my late wives into her care. And she tells people she's not worried about her own safety with me because she wrote the death certificates. So she knows how they died. You have to have a sense of humor when you have
I'm not mad at you
twice.
for that. I am absolutely not mad at you. I just wasn't expecting that narrative to fly forth. Okay.
Yes, that is
right.
who we are. Because she does, we do death and dying all day and all night at our house. And for us, death is part of life and grief is part of life. And it makes you very much more grateful for the time you have here, when you are so very aware that it's not promised to you.
That's important. And I think I'm going to revisit it a little bit here in a minute. But I want to get to your book. Your introduction. Well, let's not start there because, again, ladies and gentlemen, Jill, where can we find your book, first of all?
It's on Amazon. You can also find it at JillJohnsonYoung.com and at therebelliouswidow.com.
Okay.
And on therebelliouswidow.com, you will find all kinds of free stuff you can download that I've written about how to create a medical book for your house if you've got someone who's ill, as well as some things to do for yourself if you are grieving. So, because I'm a social worker at heart, and you got to give folks stuff that they need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Just want to be sure I got that down. I'm going to have you probably say it again later because I want people to know.
I appreciate that.
In your dedication, which is where the first thing I highlighted, was at the very last. And you say, my hope is that this book would take each reader through their own goodbye and into a happy and successful recovery, with the memory of their spouse tucked in with them along the way. Simple profundity, by the way.
Okay. And that's how I live my life, and that's how I work with my clients.
Now, I have to, because that really impacted me, because just Thursday, I officiated a graveyard site service. And one of the things I did say, and largely in part to reading your book, was that no one gets to dictate what your grief looks like.
Absolutely.
And I learned a lot of that from reading in this. And your book could have been split in half and then 2 books, because you pack so much in. It's just like one revelation after another, after another, after another, that just makes you go, well, that makes sense. Well, that makes sense. And then you find yourself, at least I did, thinking, oh my gosh, people put so much pressure on themselves about this grief thing.
They do. And it makes grief harder.
So that's, and I said all of that to ask you, where was your light bulb when you realized, okay, we're doing this backwards? Because you don't like the 5 steps. That's very clear.
5 stages of grief belong in anticipatory grief.
You hate
Let me
that.
say
I
that.
saw that.
That's where they belong. It's meant for who's dying, not for after the loss. And we apply it to people. And it makes grievers feel like they're being bad or wrong, or it creates problems.
Okay, so tell me about what made you decide for real, that what was for you. Were you a social worker when
I've been a social worker since I was 22. So yeah, I was a social worker all the way through. I was the first social worker for Inland AIDS Project.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Back in the day when we didn't have Ryan White funds, because Ryan White was still a little boy living in Indiana.
Okay.
I'm dating myself. And I have been a hospice social worker in 2 states, which is the other love of my life. And I've been an adoptions and CPS social worker, which is filled with loss as well as some joy. And so I've always been a social worker, and that's part of how I approach life. And back in the day with AIDS, we took people out of the hospital and they died 4 months later at our shelter in the East Side. Mm-hmm. That was how it went.
Now, you mentioned the Inland AIDS Power here in Riverside, yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you knew Jeffrey Owens?
I did.
Okay, you knew his partner, Jeffrey Holland?
Yes, I did.
Jeffrey is my husband.
Oh, my goodness. I was unaware.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
I am so glad he found joy again. Yeah, our church is the one that created or helped support the memorial service that first terrible night.
Oh my gosh! So yeah, we have those things.
I was there for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were in the same place. I just didn't know you then, because at the time Jeff and I were just friends, So
yeah.
But okay, moving forward. See, I knew this was gonna just be too much to fit.
Riverside is one small town,
isn't it? Though it's like Walnut Grove. It's like everybody knows everybody. So
exactly.
Okay, so you open your introduction with this quote, which I highlighted. Life is not what it's supposed to be. It's what it is. The way you cope with it is what makes the difference. And that's a quote by Virginia Starr. Tell me about. Oh, I'm reading it wrong. I don't have my glasses on.
She is like the rock star in some psychotherapist communities. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it.
Okay, so tell me why that quote resonated so strongly with you.
Because when you are in the middle of loss, which is the first part of the book, and when you are coping with loss afterward, you get to decide how you're going to do it. And if you decide that you want to sit in grief, then that is where you will sit. And if you decide that you want to take this loss and make that life count and share that life, as you did at the beginning of the program, share those names, share what those people meant, and bring them into your new life, as I do, because I do a lot of public speaking, and Linda and Casper go with me. They're in my slides. They're introduced every time I do a speaking gig. And not in a sad way, but in this is part of my story, and this is how I got to where I am now. And I know that they would be proud of what I have done with their losses. And so that quote says, this is who I am. And that you also have to have boundaries when you're grieving, because you are right. When you are grieving, people will lay all kinds of guilt on you. And my light bulb moment was I was still working for the county in adoptions after Linda's death. And I had people coming by my desk and telling me, because we lived in a cubicle farm, right? So everybody has access to you. Mm-hmm. And in my little cubicle, I would get people visiting and telling me that I looked too happy, or that I wasn't sad enough, or, that I should be doing this, or I shouldn't be doing that, and that I'd be grieving forever. And I just wanted to tell them all to stop and leave me alone. And I finally texted my boss and said, I'm going to put black crepe over my doorway so people can't come in, and they will feel like I'm being appropriate to their needs about my grief, but I need to go see some sunshine, right? Mm-hmm. I need to get out of here. I don't need to be told to be sad. I have dealt with sadness and illness for a decade, and I'm ready to have some life again. And that is what Linda would want for me. And that's when I decided that Rebellious Widow was where I was going to settle, because I needed to not follow the widow rules. And the widow rules suck. And I wanted to break them all.
Okay. And I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because I thought about this too. And I know it's called The Rebellious Widow, but there's nothing in it that won't apply to a widower.
Absolutely every loss. It applies to every loss. And that's probably my biggest error in titling the book, but I really like The Rebellious Widow, so I insisted on it, even though my editor was like, this is really stupid, Jill. People aren't going to read it because they're going to think it's just about you and just your losses. But it does. The rules are, don't smile too much, but don't look too sad, because if you look too sad, you make other people sad.
I'm looking at that right now. That's one of the things I highlight. You have
Right?
this whole list of
There's a
things that
list.
you are not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so please continue with that because I think it's amazing.
It's don't look too sad, don't look too happy. Because if you're too happy, then you don't miss them enough, and you're not grieving them enough, and you're not honoring their life, and you're being disrespectful to the loss. But if you look too sad, then you make other people sad, and that's not okay either. And don't cry too much because you'll make us cry, but don't not cry because then we'll think you're not sad enough. And for God's sakes, don't be seen dating if you're a widow or widower. And you got to not do that. In fact, when I was first widowed, a fellow widow took me out for coffee, and she's like, here's the deal. I know you're going to date again because I heard you and Linda talking, and I don't blame you because you need to, but you live in Riverside, so you need to go to Redlands or beyond. You cannot be seen in Riverside with anyone else, because people will smack talk and people will come after you, and they will tell you that it's not okay and that you're being disrespectful. And nobody who has not walked that walk and sat by that bedside and prepared for a loss and felt their shoulders wearing out sitting next to a hospital bed, nobody, if you haven't done that, you don't know how tired you are and how much you miss arms around you and how much you miss being held, which is something we also don't talk about, right? I do presentations on intimate partner loss for hospices, and I have hospice staff come up to me and say, I never thought about it, right? You need to be able to honor the fact that this was a couple, and that half the couple died. So the couple died, and that person deserves to have whatever it is that they need, whether it's to be Betty White and adopt all the dogs, right? And never marry again, or Jill and marry really quickly, but still have all the dogs, whichever you prefer, right? There's a spectrum. So the rules are they're not okay. They make widows, they make grievers feel bad about themselves, and you should be able to grieve your way.
What do you say to someone who is struggling with a group? Because sometimes friends have the best intentions. They don't always communicate
they do.
the right way, and they have their feelings. Even outside of grief, everyone has an opinion in the way of your life should go. And I've always thought, well, you need to have an opinion the way your life should go.
I've seen you saying that on some of your posts.
You absolutely, because I fell into that. That, because Jeff and I went through that when we first got together. Everyone was like,
how dare you?
Yeah, do that. And Jeff had lost not only Jeffrey, but his partner after that was my best friend. So you can imagine the rumors that flew when that went down. But what do you tell someone who has a friend group that means well, but may not always get it right? What do you tell them?
What I found works for myself and for my clients is to honor your own process in what you are doing with your life. And then I let them sort themselves out, because every time there's a loss or a shift in our lives, we lose other people, which is not something we talk about. And it's not something grievers expect. You expect to lose the person who died, but you always lose 2, 3, 4 more people who are either uncomfortable with death and dying, or uncomfortable with grief, or who vote with their feet and don't like how you're doing your grief. And they think that they can tell you what to do, and that if they disappear, you will come around and do it their way, when in fact, you need to live your new life the way that you need to. And if they choose to join you, and they choose to see that you are doing what you need to do for you, and it has nothing to do with the loss of your previous partner, it has to do with, I have a life still, and I've got the rest of my life to live. If they can't do that with you, then they move to that outer periphery, and other people move into the center. It's a center of, it's a group of circles, and they go to the outside. They become Pluto.
When did you learn to set the boundaries that you speak about in your book? Because this book is absolutely, there's no way you got this overnight. You had to live through all of this stuff, in order to write what you did. And again, and ladies and gentlemen, It's all meat in here. There's no fluff in this book at all. And I just want to take a moment to remind you, if you have a question, please put it in the chat so we can ask Jill about it. You went through some stuff in order to come up with the type of wisdom that you put down in this book. And I'm looking here right now on page 40 about setting healthy boundaries. And I also want to talk about the communication part, which is fantastic as well. How to talk about friends and family about what's happening, which is where the boundaries are under.
That's where they start.
Okay. So the funeral I'm going to at 11 today. Mm-hmm. I've this friend of mine, it seems as if, and you can probably confirm or correct me if I'm wrong here, that the stress comes from the external people who don't really know what's going on.
That's where it all comes from.
And I've watched him go through trying to juggle everyone else's expectation. And I feel like people are forgetting the fact that he's lost a partner of 18 years. That's no small feat.
No, that's huge.
It's hard for me to get rid of a really comfortable pair of underwear. Let alone
absolutely
a partner of 18
years.
You know, and it was just everything. And obviously he won't be listening because he's getting ready to do the service, but what advice would you be able to give him? Because, you know, the funeral can be a nightmare. Planning that can be an absolute nightmare.
And doing it can be a nightmare because there's always somebody who has a need to come up to you after your partner's funeral and tell you what you did wrong. They will critique. You stand back and watch. Somebody's going to walk up to him and tell him he did something
it's already
wrong.
happened to him. Somebody who's an atheist thought the service was too religious. And I was like, you know, it's not about you.
Right. You can have an atheist funeral for you, but I get to have the one I want for my partner. That's how it goes. Right.
Practical advice, if my friend were listening, about what could possibly happen at the funeral today. Like you just said, somebody might walk up to him and go, hey, that was great. However, what would be your advice?
I prepare my grievers for funerals. I make sure they've got a backup person. I make sure that they've got water and some snacks, because if you're in a receiving line, you know, people get close to passing out because their blood sugar drops because they're under such duress at that moment. And then to prepare themselves to say to anyone who's critiquing, you know, I appreciate your input. I really liked what we did. And then to put that sound in their head. Remember the Peanuts teacher?
Wah, 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 wah,
that's
wah.
it. Yeah. That is the sound you hear when people are critiquing your grief process. Wah, wah, wah. You have not walked this walk. He is profoundly aware that he has lost his partner of 18 years. He has woken up every morning since then to that empty spot in the bed. And for an intimate partner loss, every morning they die all over again. Because you wake up and you reach over and they aren't there. So he's been adapting since this death to this new reality. This is going to be a stressful day, but it's also going to be a relief day that, okay, that part's over. Now I can breathe and I can hold that memory tight and I can take him with me and go on. The funeral doesn't mean that you are done with the loss. It means that you're done with the ceremonial part. And then you get to start adapting. And when you hear people critiquing, you say to yourself, I did it the way that they wanted it. And nobody else gets to tell me how to do it. You have to keep that mantra, right? You got to keep telling yourself that, because folks will tell you. And he will be told 1,000,000 times from here on out that he's not doing it right. And he's doing it exactly right for himself. And if he finds that he's made an error in something, let's not allow anybody to tell him, I told you so, because he's never been a widow before. This is not something they teach us in high school. It's not something they teach us in college.
Right.
There is a book, but there wasn't a book on how to do it. So if you make an error and you do something that doesn't work out, you get to go back and have a redo, because this is a first time.
Now
Right.
you say on page again, I have to jump around because we can't go through the whole book. It's just too much. On page 91, the title is When the Funeral is Over. And you say something here that I think most people, I think the vast majority of people forget completely about. You say, after the funeral, everyone else goes back to real life.
Yep.
Yes, they lost someone too. But if they are not the ones going home to a house where the person who died lived, it's not a moment to moment loss. I think that is absolutely incredibly significant for you to put in this book. Um, I have not had that experience. You know, I've not lost a partner in that regard. Um, you have done it twice.
Twice.
My husband has done it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's like a moment like no other.
so to set that up, is there a expiration date on grief? Is there a time where you can grieve too long or allow yourself to grieve too long?
My way of looking at it, because everybody's grief is their own, and it depends on whether it's a sudden, unexpected death or a death by illness where you have lots of time to prepare. Those are two very different experiences, whether it's a witnessed death or, as in COVID, the expected but unwitnessed death. So you can't be there. And so your head fills with all the imaginary, what might have occurred moments, right? But if your grief is taking over your life and you are now defining yourself by your loss, then to my way of thinking, then you have fallen too far into the grief and you need to pull out and start looking at what do I want to do with my life? Because if I keep this up, this is what my life is going to be. And is that what I want? And I don't want to see any griever defining themselves. You know, I don't describe myself as, hi, I'm the person who's been widowed twice, and you know,
Mhm.
here's all the other losses, and my dog Adele and my dog. I describe myself as, hi, I'm Jill. And by the way, these things have occurred in my life, and these people are still part of my life. There's a significant mind shift between those two. But those who've had a sudden loss, they have a probably longer grief process in general because they're adapting suddenly and rapidly. And no sudden loss is something that you can prepare for. And because we don't talk about grief and we don't talk about death in general in our society, most couples haven't talked about what they want at their death and what they want for their funeral. And so they're scrambling, trying to figure it all out. And they're getting all this input from all these helpful people who are not being helpful and are filling their head. And that makes it harder.
Now, what do you say to a person who feels guilt about moving on? Because I know you bumped into that.
I never use the word moving on.
Oh, okay.
Or the phrase moving on is one that grievers really don't tolerate well. They
Okay.
look at as, I am reclaiming my life. I am moving into my new life that I did not choose. You want to make sure you're acknowledging that this is not something they would ever have wanted. This is not a somebody left me moment. This is a or that I left somebody. Even if somebody has left me, that's also not a life I chose. I am moving into a new life and I'm taking them with me. And that's what's important about the image of tucking someone in, because you are taking them with you. They don't disappear. And that's what's important too for grievers to be allowed to say the names of the people that they are missing. They should come up at the holidays. Their birthdays should be acknowledged. Anniversaries should be acknowledged. My parents' anniversary was 65th wedding anniversary was yesterday. My dad's been dead for 15 years. We had anniversary lunch with my mom because she's still very much my dad's widow and she's still very much married to him in her heart. So we have to make sure we honor those things. And I tell the person who's being guilted about it, you stand up and you do what you want to do and you do what you need to do because this is your loss. It's your grief, your way, your rules.
Okay,
Nobody
so
else's.
what is a better phrase to suggest than moving on?
I would say,
what
can I do to help you to find your way into wherever you're going? Big, wide open.
Oh, okay.
because the whole world is open when you, especially in an intimate partner loss, it's like the ace of spades of loss. Your whole world has changed. And many people who lose an intimate partner really do make significant changes. They change careers, they change locations, they have a change out of some friends. Major changes occur because their whole world has changed.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know your book is more targeted, if for lack of a better phrase, for intimate relationships on that level, but for the intimate relationships that are like you lose a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, can these
Same
things
roles
transferred?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good,
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at some of this and I couldn't help but, quite honestly, being completely transparent, think about my dad, who I lost in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved what you said, because I had fallen initially into that place of, let's not talk about it. Let's
Not
not
healthy.
acknowledge it. Let's not acknowledge it. Let's just move on. But then, like every year, like the last movie my father and I watched together was The Fabulous Baker Boys with Michelle Pfeiffer and the Bridges, Bo and Jeff Bridges. One of my favorite movies still to this day. And now every year on his birthday, I watch that film.
I love that. And you think about him.
And it, yes, I do. And it's not sad anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
It does change over time.
It does.
The important thing too is finishing what's left over. Because if you have leftovers with someone who's died or someone who has exited your life, if it's an end of a friendship or an end of a marriage, when you have things left over with someone who's died or is gone, those keep you in the grief because you can't say goodbye to it. So if you have things you didn't say, if they had things you wish they'd said, if there were apologies that needed to be made,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's where sudden losses become harder because you didn't have time to do those things. Then you need to make space. If there are plans that never got finished,
mm-hmm.
and you're not going to finish them now, there's guilt that comes with that. Or you are going to finish them now, then there's guilt that comes with that because you're finishing them without them. So there's all those pieces to finish so that you can put the leftovers to rest,
mm-hmm.
and just take all of those good memories and who they really were with you. The other thing that holds people up is if they're trying to create a memory that's not accurate, right? For those who've lost a parent, but that parent wasn't the parent they should have been.
Okay. All right.
Or a partner, but there was violence or substance abuse or emotional abuse. And when you go to a funeral, but folks in general don't acknowledge that people had quirks, right? That there were things. I do.
Perfect. You weren't perfect.
When I give the eulogy for my wives, all the quirks are there because that's who they were and that's what made them them. And I don't need to make them perfect angels. They weren't, but they were perfect for me in their life.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. That's just really, really, really good. Hospice. You speak a lot about hospice.
Yes.
When most people hear hospice, they know what's coming.
And they get scared.
To make the decision, in your opinion, to go that route, what would you think that people need to, because some people are really scared of that, but I also have learned in my minuscule, I'm not on your level, that sometimes we think we're doing good, but we're actually doing harm when hospice would be the best decision. One of the things my mother and I decided when my dad was heading out, we had to make the decision to turn off the machine. That was hard. Tough.
Oh, yeah.
Tough. And we were both in a room, and to watch the heart slow down and then flatline is a really surreal moment.
Yes, it is.
But when you have to make the decision, because I think there's a finality to that. You're making a decision, and you're making an acknowledgement that this person is not going to make it. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to meet with somebody before they made that decision?
Yes. Yeah. Doctors send people to me now for that.
Oh, okay. And how do you navigate that? I can't imagine.
Well, what I do first of all is I use different language. Doctors use DNR, I use AND, allowing natural death. Because
Huh.
before we had machinery, that person would have died long before that moment. And typically their brain is already moved to death and they have already transitioned into whatever their new life is going to be, whatever your belief systems are. And so they are no longer truly there. You are there to witness the end of their body and the end of their functioning. And so that's allowing a natural death. So I work with pediatric families who have children in NICU who are making those decisions. And I work with folks who have other folks who are sick or in the hospital. And during COVID, there was a lot of this. And so what I do is I talk to them about you are there to witness it. And you can say whatever needs to be said because we have research that shows that there is some acknowledgement in the brain of voices that are recognizable to that person. They did some research long ago before we had all these human subject research committees, and they put EEGs on folks and they watched their responses to voices and they responded to the voices that they knew, and they didn't respond to voices of nurses, doctors, and other staff. Only the people who were important to them. So when you are bedside and you are in the middle of allowing a natural death to occur, you keep talking and you say goodbye and you say the things that need to be said and you tell them the things you wish that you'd heard them say that you knew they meant so that you can finish those things.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. The nurses would tell me that when I walked in to see my dad before he passed away, when you walk in and you say something, he opens his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay. Now he did the same thing with my mom, but the only two.
That's right, because those were the two voices that counted.
Yeah, the only two that he did that with. That just really confirms a lot here. I could do this all day with you. I just say you're gonna have to do this again. You're gonna have to.
I'd love to.
We're not done yet. But because I have a couple of more questions before we take the edge off. You should see my producer Mike. He's waiting with the cattle prod.
Back off, Mike. Back off.
Okay, so now how do you, once it's all said and done, because again, the funeral I'm going to go to today, we're going to all hug my friend and we're going to comfort him, all the things, and he's going to go back to that, and the family is going to leave, and he's going to have to go back to the animals that are there, and with the finality of knowing that Aaron's not going to be there.
Right.
How does he, outside of allowing his grief to happen the way it's going to, because the world doesn't stop.
No, everybody goes, people stop at the grocery store on the way home from the funeral.
Yeah.
Right. And their life then moves into, we need to make mac and cheese tonight. And he's going home to be two dads to the pets instead of one, right? His world has forever shifted.
So in your opinion, again, because I used to be a pastor, and sometimes, again, intentions sometimes as well meaning as they can be do more harm than good. How would you tell people to support him? Because you write about that in the book.
First of all,
really good, by the way. Really
thank
good.
You. Because people feel forgotten after that funeral. It makes this vacuum. And you see other people, social media makes it worse now. Because everyone else is, they'll be posting this afternoon the other things they're doing. They'll say something nice about the funeral, and then they'll post about dinner tonight. And so he's going to need mail, MAIL. Make sure that you put some cards in the mail, not the sappy shit. Don't do that. Put the blank cards and write a note. Just thinking about you. Here's a favorite memory. This is some way that he came up tonight or came up this week. These are things I want you to remember about him. Make sure that you are putting the anniversary of his death on your calendar for next year. Make sure you're putting their wedding anniversary, if there is one, and his birthday on your calendar so that you are reaching out that day. Because guaranteed his social media is going to remind him, and he's going to get hit in the face at 6 a.m. when he wakes up on those days. So make sure that you have reached out first so that he's got some support and he knows other people remember that and how important that date was to him.
What I also like that you put in your book is a practical list of things that people who grieve may need.
Yes.
A list. Can you get the mail for me? Can you run a few errands for me? Those types of things.
Can you walk the dogs?
Yeah. Yes. I thought that was fantastic as well.
Take the kids out if there are children around, and don't talk to them about the death unless they want to, but take them out to Shakey's for pizza or something. Do the things that they used to do as a family, whatever family constellation has changed. If someone's dad has died, make sure on Father's Day you're reaching out and reminding them that you valued and loved their dad and have not forgotten him.
Yeah.
Father's Day and Mother's Day are deadly for grievers because it's Hallmark has battered us to bits over those days. Valentine's Day as well.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure you're remembering them because they have to walk into the grocery store and see all the things. And it's hard.
See, again, another thing that I love about it is so practical. We don't think about that stuff. He had 18 years of Valentine's Days, Thanksgivings, Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, all those things. And now that goes away.
Right. If you are the one hosting him for Thanksgiving, make sure that the partner is there. Right. Make sure that, you make an ornament if he celebrates Christmas and put his partner's picture or their picture in that ornament. And you don't have to have any writing on it at all, but so that ornament can go on the tree. Our tree is filled with all the pets, all the people. It's like the memorial Christmas tree and all of we buy an ornament every time we go on vacation. So it's all the things. And every year, we're going to need a 16-foot tree at some point, but you want to make sure that you're bringing those people into those moments so that they don't feel stifled or weird, because grievers are frequently told by deeds, if not by words, not to bring up the dead person on the holidays because it makes others feel sad. Bring them up. Include them.
Yeah, I agree.
Share the stories.
I agree. Right? Because my experience has been you end up laughing or smiling more than you did crying.
Right.
Right. It's like I've moved on from being sad about my dad on Father's Day and on his birthday and on Christmas.
But you share the funny stories, don't you?
I do. They make me smile. They actually make me smile. Last question before we get into the fun part of something I want to ask you, because I think you'd be a hoot at this.
Okay.
Can we, as supporters, is there? Can we do too much? Is there a point we should stop acknowledging?
That's a good question. I think that honestly, acknowledging the dates should occur. And you can, a few years later say, just want you to know I'm still thinking about you on this day. I know it's a Hallmark day, and leave it at that. Right?
Okay, that makes sense. Yes.
Because what happens when a griever who's now moved into their new life, but still acknowledges the day, like on social media, so my 35th wedding anniversary with Linda will be coming up soon. And so I'll put a little something up, but I have to preface it each time now saying, I'm not sad, folks. I don't need sad faces. I don't need teary faces. I'm just acknowledging this was an important date in my life and remains an important date in my life. Right. So acknowledge those things and say, you just want you to know I'm thinking about you in this happy memory of you guys. And that's okay.
Yeah, because Jeff is often tied to Jeffrey Owens' death. And he's gotten to the point where he's just done. He wants he wants to go on. He doesn't want to
then he should say so.
He doesn't want to be the poster child of this thing. He just, he knows it's there. If no one knows it better than he does.
Absolutely.
So it's like he wants to move on,
Yes.
Okay, but
He
yeah,
wants to not have to live the life of the survivor of a murder victim. And that makes sense.
yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you for being far more
Mhm.
eloquent than I am. Okay.
It's not eloquent. He's lived that part and people know it. And so for him, he should say, you know what, guys, I'm okay with it. Let's not acknowledge it this year.
Okay. Gotcha.
Put it out there.
I tend to step back off it because it's his thing. And it's just like, I don't want to, tread on something that I don't think I
Right.
should tread on. But anyway, but
Right.
okay. And at the end, we're going to do this, and then I'm going to ask you to let us know everything that you're doing, because that's how I want to end this. Okay. So get that in your mental key. Okay.
Mhm.
But have you ever watched Inside the Actor's Studio?
I have.
Okay. You are familiar with the questionnaire?
I sort of, yes.
Okay. I'm going to do the questionnaire with you. I love James Lipton. And he did a questionnaire from Bavard Pivot. And this is altered a little bit. It's 10 questions. And I'm just going to get your correct response, or whatever response you want to give. What is your favorite word?
My favorite word, soar.
Soar?
Mm-hmm. SOAR.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, soar. What's happening there? Okay. What is your least favorite word?
Despair.
What turns you on?
Sunshine.
What turns you off?
Despair.
What sound or noise do you love?
My dog's barking.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Cars honking.
What is your favorite curse word?
Am I allowed to say it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I have so many to choose from.
Well, you only can pick one.
This is my dad's inheritance. I learned how to cuss from him.
Okay.
I would probably say freaking MFer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for a hot second, you're going to say moist, because that's the winner when I do these. People love that word. Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Forestry.
Forestry.
Floristry.
Why forestry? I'm interested.
I love flowers, and I love how they make people smile. And I think it would be just terrific to have a little flower stand.
Do you have a garden?
But I do. I have a big garden.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I am not good at that. I always tell people that I have a brown thumb, figuratively and literally. And if a fish or a plant dies around me, I have something to do with it. So I'm just not good at it.
I have tomatoes taking over my world right now.
Okay, well, there you go. 2 more questions. What profession would you not like to do?
Probably teaching kindergarten.
I get it. I get it.
I honor those who do.
I do too, but Lord, today. Okay. All right. Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Come on in. Okay. The dogs are waiting.
Oh, that's super sweet. It's very sweet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now in the last few minutes, you have 6. Okay, you have 5.
Because Mike's watching.
You have the catapult is heating up.
I'm glad he's closer to you than me.
He's right there. Okay. Let us know. Tell us what you're doing, and I'm going to also ask you when this is all over to send me links to things so I can post, because I'm going to post this to YouTube later so that people can see this.
Nice.
And I'm going to send you the link so you can share it as well.
Every Friday, I have the Friday Grief Chat with Jill and Deb, and that's live on Facebook at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
And that's on the Facebook page, Humor, Grace, and Grief. And as we speak, it's being pulled into podcast format. So that will be going out on podcast, the last 2.5 years worth of them, sometime in the next month. Because I have a 21-year-old college student who I don't pay enough, who takes care of stuff like that for me. I'll be speaking at the Association for Death Education and Counseling, ADEC, which is the largest grief group and the premier one, or the one where all the academics go. Next year, I'll be speaking at the International Death, Grief, and Bereavement conference, if I have any say so about it, next year in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I am on multiple podcasts. So if you look on my JillJohnsonYoung.com, you'll find the podcasts that I'm on. So I've got a couple more coming up. And I have classes that are online all the time on grief and loss and dementia. I run a dementia support group that is 100% free. It's the third Saturday of every month online. And if you message me, I will send the link out. We don't publish the link because trolls. But one of my colleagues, Ilse Ertz, and I have been doing this group now. I started it about 8 years ago, and she joined me about 2 years ago. So we support families coping with dementia every single month. And I'll be in the far future speaking on Maui in 2024 at a conference, doing some grief work there. So I turn up wherever somebody invites me. If I get a hello, we'd like to have you speak or keynote, I will show up, because there's nothing more fun for me than a conference full of people, or a room full of people, or a screen full of people. I love doing that work. I love teaching folks about grief and loss. I love teaching folks what dementia really is, as opposed to what they think it is. That there are 12 kinds of dementia, not just Alzheimer's disease. That there's practical things you can do to help them as well as help grievers. Mm-hmm. And I like helping families who are preparing for a loss, because that makes the loss more meaningful and easier for them.
Well, I want to
by day, I'm always at Central Counseling Services.
Okay, well, I'm going to put this out there right now, and if the calendar works out, because I would love to have you back to specifically just talk about dementia, because you just said something that I didn't know, that there were 12 different kinds. Mm-hmm. We only think of Alzheimer's. Well, I won't speak for anybody. I only do.
Everybody.
I didn't know there were 11 others. I mean, mm-hmm. That's a show in and of itself, and I would love to have you, if your schedule works out, and we can continue to talk about it, because I think it's important to do that. You have been an absolute delight to chat.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Okay, I'm glad. This book, y'all get it. Where can they find it again, Miss Jill?
Amazon, and at JillJohnsonYoung.com, and at theRebellious's.com. And it's got all the help. It's not just for people at after death. It's for those preparing for end of life too.
Yeah, it's so good. For real. It's so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm gonna send you all the links. I want you to send me all the stuff so I can post it, and I'm gonna send it to YouTube so you can share it as you will.
Share, I will. I am a social media crazy person.
Okay, except for the trolls.
Except for the trolls. No trolls allowed.
All right, beautiful. You take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too. I wish you a peaceful time today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you all for joining us today. Jill Johnson Young. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Be well.